Welcome to another 3.8 Blight League video. Today we'll be talking about my Elemental Hit Slayer as well as going over the build. Now this build so far has taken me through the whole entire game. I've done multiple Uber Elders on this as well as a tier 15 Blighted map, which is the highest level content that Blight League has to offer so far. This current guide is based on a Slayer variant of the Elemental Hit. There are also Ascendant and Deadeye versions of the build. I've ran both of them in the past, and I'll give you my thoughts on how Slayer compares to it and whether or not it's worth it or whether it's better or worse. The reason why we use Slayer this time for Elemental Hit is because of the changes they made back in 3.7 to one of Slayer's ascendancies. Their ascendancy node was changed, so we got a node called Overwhelm. Now what Overwhelm does is to make our base critical strike chance for any weapon 7.5%. Now why is this useful for us? That's because we use a Thicket Bow. Now Thicket Bow has the best attacks per second, and we combine it with the critical strike chance given to us by Overwhelm for a best of both worlds scenario with both high crit and high attack speed. You can see my bow here. This is a Shaper bow that has been multi-modded off a double damage roll. These bows are not very hard to craft. It's just a pure multi-mod off a single mod. There are better bows that obviously exist, like the delve crafted bows, but for our purposes, this bow is more than enough to take on all the content in the game. Anything better than this would just be overkill. Or if you actually need a bow better than this, I would assume you are doing extremely low level delving, and at that point, this might not be the best build for it. Now, the benefits of running a Slayer compared to a Deadeye or a Ascendant is that we are able to scale a massive amount of damage as well as a massive amount of survivability, whereas in the past for Ascendants, they get a lot of survivability and tankiness, but not so much damage, whereas Deadeye gets a lot more damage and not so much survivability. So this build kind of takes both of those and gives you a best of both worlds experience with the Slayer Overleash as well as the Overwhelm crit. This build is a very generic elemental hit tree, more towards the crit side, very similar to what a Deadeye would run. So obviously we have both our combat focus jewels here. You need both of these in order for elemental hit to choose fire, which is the element we're using, as well as a Lionized Fall, which gives us some nice juicy bow nodes that are converted from claw nodes in the Ranger area. So these are very common nodes taken with Lionized Fall together to give both leech and also crit multi. We also utilize acrobatics and phase acrobatics to help mitigate some of the damage we take as well as give us higher survivability. So for gearing options, you want to run a shaped Thicket Bow with the double damage attack speed mod and have it multi-modded. This is probably the easiest bow to make as well as a very efficient way of building damage without costing too much. In our ring slots, we run Pyre for the cold to fire conversion as well as the added ability of ignited enemies being destroyed on kill. Now this is very effective against mobs like porcupines or other mobs with on-death effects that could be potentially rippy. This just avoids that mechanic. It's almost like a shadow for a fire. Opposite ring slot, you want to run a Shaper ring with cursed enemies with level whatever Assassin's Mark on hit. Our helmet slot, self-explanatory, you run a Frost Phono for your single target setup. It gives you +4 to your level of elemental hit as well as level 30 cold to fire. So this will give us a massive amount of single target damage. In our amulet slot, you have to run a Zoph's Blood. The reason why is because you want Avatar Fire, which converts 50% of your lightning, cold, and physical damage into fire, which gives us a huge damage boost to elemental hit. The reason why we grab a amulet and not the node is because as a Slayer, pathing all the way up to Avatar Fire is not very it's not very nice, and it's not very efficient for us to do so. So we grab a Zoph's Blood because of the easy Avatar Fire as well as the added bonuses of having penetration and covering enemies in ash. In our chest slot, we just run a Calms, 500 flat life, very hard to beat, gives us a lot of survivability to our build. In our quiver slot, we run a Spike Point Quiver, which gives us some nice crit chance, as well as looking out for rolls of life, crit multiplier, whatever resistance you have in capped, and a bit of elemental damage with attack skills. Gloves, I'm running a series equity for the Vow Pact, as well as the intelligence. You definitely don't need to run at series equities. You can just run a pair of gripped gloves like these, and just have a high amount of life on it, as well as other resistances. For our belt slot, I run a Stygian Vice. Same deal as before. Get life, cap your reses, have a bit of elemental damage on it, fire damage, all of them are fine. And our boots increase movement speed, life, and resistances. In terms of our flasks, this is one of the best flasks you can get now for attack builds like Slayers. It is a enduring eternal mana flask. Why this is so good is because this was a new mod introduced in 3.8 that when you use it, the flask effect is not removed at full mana. So what happens is when I press my mana flask, even though I'm at full mana, the bar you can see still ticks down. So this allows us to shoot at our maximum speed without worrying about mana at all. And an even better factor of this flask is you can use it multiple times in one go, and it will just queue up the instances. So if I press it, I think 4 or 5 times, you'll see the bar, it will tick down, and then it will refresh and go again. So while this is happening, I can just shoot at full speed, and you can see my mana, it will never ever come close to being used. And one flask charge of this is very, very small, and you can use it, it refills ridiculously fast. So it pretty much gives us full uptime for our mana, so we can shoot as fast as we want. We're not limited by a attack speed anymore. In terms of other flasks, it's a diamond flask, obviously for capping out our crit, a quicksilver flask to help us get around, a Cinder Swallow urn for giving us even more damage and giving us more critical strike chance, as well as recovery when we use it, and a Wise Oak for more damage and a bit of mitigation if you triple balance your reses. For your Ascendancy, you want to grab Endless Hunger and then Brutal Fervor before picking up Overwhelm and Headsman last. For your Pantheon, you want to run Soul of Lunaris for your Major God and Soul of Gruthkul for your Minor God. Both of these give you a nice reduction in physical damage taken and makes the build a little bit more tanky. For anointments, we use Vengeance Cascade. I made a previous video about this, testing the anointments. At this point, there's quite a bit of investment into making a Vengeance Cascade amulet, so I don't really want to re-anoint it or go over it because I'm pretty happy with what it does right now. If you haven't seen the video, Vengeance Cascade pretty much makes your projectiles return to you and allows your projectiles to go backwards when you hit an enemy. I mentioned in the previous video that it wasn't very worth it and not very necessary for any build, and I stand by that after some more testing. It's a nice concept, but not very good in practice. For Gemlinks, you want to run Elemental Hit, damage on full life support, greater multiple projectile support, elemental damage with attack support, inspiration, and Mirage Archer. This is in our 6-link bow for clearing. In our single target setup in our helmet, you want to run Elemental Hit, damage on full life support, elemental damage with attack support, and elemental focus. In our gloves, you want to run Immortal Call with castman damage taken. You want a higher level of castman damage taken support because we do have quite a beefy HP pool, so you want to make it proc only when you're taking a very big hit or significantly big hit. So we level it up to 12 and 14 respectively. We also run a blink arrow attached to faster attacks in order for a bit of mobility. For our auras, we run Precision, Anger, Blood Rage, and Dash. So this gives us all our utility we need. In addition to this, if you are running Anger, you want to grab a Watcher's Eye with either a single roll or double roll with Anger and Precision. Currently I'm running a Anger Jewel with 5 penetration. These are very cheap to grab with just a single roll, and if you want to push the build even more, you can grab one with Precision Crit Multiplier. All in all, while this may be a generic elemental hit build, this has been a very, very fun and satisfying build to play. It has let me clear all of the game without any difficulties, and has allowed me to use this character to do all my content. I would strongly recommend making this character if you have a bit of currency, because it is not a cheap build to start, but it is very, very effective at clearing blighted encounters as well as every single endgame scenario. So now I'll quickly show you a variation of the build that I'm currently running. So I put in a Devotos to swap out a single target Frostburner setup, as well as a Opal Ring to help cap our reses. I also put in a Chain support instead of Mirage Archer to help us map. The reason why I put Chain is, you'll see in a second, it is a very, very extremely nice quality of life towards our clear setup. So we'll quickly run a map now just to demonstrate how the build works. Note, this is the clearing version of the build. This will be if you want to map very quickly rather than take on all the content in the game. As you can see, it's got quite a nice amount of clear, as well as extreme amounts of damage, whilst also being remarkably tanky. We get to abuse the fact that Elemental Hit has a ridiculous amount of flat damage scaling and run a Chain support with almost no downsides. Alternatively, you could also use a Rigwald for Fork, but in my opinion, Chain is more than enough for clearing because you're going to be one-shotting mobs with your first click. Now we'll fight the boss and we'll show you the single target capability. So yeah, so this is on a 6 link for damage for clearing, and you can see how fast he killed a tier 13 or tier 12 boss. There's nothing really much else that's new about the build. It's just utilizing existing mechanics and existing ascendancies to make a ridiculously overtuned build. If you do want the path of building, I'll link it in the section below, and I'll also answer any questions you guys have. Thanks for watching the video, and be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more content in the future.